Hey y'all, I'm back with another legacy video, and today I will be recapping another AlurenTell trophy. So I've been liking this exact list. If you've seen any of my other videos, it's 3 Ancient Tomb, 2 City of Traders. I want to talk just a little bit about this. So this was from discussions I had with Brady Monroe about the deck, and he had been trying this out, and I think it's pretty good because it does save you a lot of life. Obviously, City of Traders potentially going away is rough, but I think the upside of potentially buying yourself another turn or two to combo off might be worth it, especially if decks like Delver are very common, decks that can get you dead really quickly. However, if for instance you want to build the deck with 4 and 1, I think that's totally fine. If you only own like 1 City of Traders, I think it's a really marginal upgrade. I think a very small percentage of games will come down to that, but I have been liking it. I do like the 2 Omniscience in the main deck. I could maybe see losing an Omniscience for an Emrakul, but I don't think I would cut an Atraxa for an Emrakul or an Acererak for that matter. Only 1 Veil of Summer in the sideboard, so 3 total copies, 3 Carpet of Flowers. Now I'm on only 2 Defense Grid and then 1 Disruptor Flute. Just covers more bases from potential opponent strategies. And honestly, between 3 Carpet, 3 Veil, 2 Defense Grid, and the Force of Wills, the blue decks can get handled pretty well from that. So there's definitely, I think, room in the sideboard to cut back a Defense Grid, despite how much I've really been loving that card. It's such an MVP in those matches, without a doubt. It's been a heck of a run. I do want to show the trophy leaderboard as it stands right now. So I just completed yet another league with a trophy. So I'm actually going to be reviewing my 21st trophy, but I got to number 22 as well. And if I have time, I'll make that video too. So with just about 2 days left to play your matches, I have a 10 trophy lead. So I do feel like I'm probably going to finish on top here. And I'm done playing. I'm going to be pretty busy this week in work, and I have time today, but I kind of want to go play Magic with my friends, actually, at my LGS in a couple hours here. So this will be it for me, but I trust that this lead will hold. It's been a heck of a run. I've really appreciated this time, and I do plan to make a video pretty soon where I recap this whole experience and offer some tips and advice if you want to try to be the trophy leader at some point, or simply maximize your success with trophies in a given league season. Also, I do intend to make a more dedicated deck tech video for both AlurenTell and Dimir Tempo really soon, and I want to incorporate any questions that you have about either of those decks. So I've been getting some great questions about both of them that I will certainly be answering in those videos. So this is the last call here for any questions that you have. You can put it in the comments of this video or any of my other videos. Questions that you would like me to directly answer in a video about either AlurenTell or Dimir Tempo or anything else I might have time to answer, or that it would make sense to answer in those videos, then feel free to do that. But without further ado, let's get into the games. Round 1, I'm on the play, and this hand is awkward in that it doesn't really have a combo complete. Show and Tell and Acererak need something else, but good mana, cantrips, it's a certain keep. My opponent's also good on 7, so Island, Ponder. And here, now I have cards to pair with Show and Tell. I could do that as early as next turn. Perfect. I would probably like to draw the Omniscience and then hide the Atraxa. If Omniscience is in my hand, it's possible that if I got Thought Seized, they might take the Omniscience, so that Show and Tell and Acererak is kind of awkward. But if my opponent's smart, they would take the Show and Tell. I don't think it's worth it, though, to hide both of these, because the Tempo of going off next turn, I think is too valuable. So draw the Omniscience, pass the turn. My opponent goes Scalding Tarn, Chrome Mox, Imprint Beseech the Mirror, so it's Storm, Hexing Squelcher, Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petal, Gamble. So I'm going to be losing all these cards in my hand. Echo of Eons. Man, turn 1. And so then I get this hand, which is pretty awkward here. So my turn 2 on the play, too slow in this game. And I'm going to go ahead and speed this up here because I can't really interact with what my opponent's doing. So they echo me again. Much more awkward. They do pass the turn. So if you'll see here, I did get to brainstorm, and sadly this basic island makes this situation kind of awkward, but it's possible I could win, you know, soon. However, my opponent is able to just go off this turn. They have the Fantastic Car. They are going to get to, looks like, make the 16 power, plus hit me with the Squelcher, Echo of Eons. So here I do Veil, and that's awkward because I don't even get to keep that card. But yeah, I'm going to get wheeled here. Not the best. If I do draw a Lurin, I think I'm going to 1 though off this. Yeah, so there's nothing really. I could brainstorm into City and a Lurin, but no luck. So I do want to illustrate here how I think this deck is as powerful as it is despite my opponent having quite a strong start, I did get to untap this turn with a chance to completely undo all of my opponent's work and win the game. Brainstorm had to hit pretty well. It had to hit a Soul Land plus a Lurin, but I did have a chance, and a lot of decks couldn't say that. So in sideboarding, I do make a good few changes. So I took out 1 Omniscience, 1 basic island, and all 4 stock ups. I do generally find stock up to be too slow of a card in these fast combo mirrors. As strong as it is, it really just is too slow. So what I brought in were the 2 Consigned to Memories, the 2 Hydroblasts, the Force of Negation, and the Veil of Summer. And Hydroblast is a necessary evil to have versus Hexing Squelcher decks. You saw how I had Force of Will a lot in that game 1, but it was just a dead card because they had the turn 1 Hexing Squelcher. So you really can't give them that airlock. It's like how this deck runs Defense Grid, and that basically gives you free wins versus blue decks. So I'm on the play. I get this hand. I think this is a mulligan. It's okay. I could possibly see keeping because you could Veil a Thoughtseize. You have Acererak, so if you get a Lurin quickly, I honestly don't remember what I did, but I think this is a mulligan. I did mulligan, yeah. And this is much better. You can put back 1 Acererak, potentially hold up Consign through the first turn, but eventually you're going to have to tap out to Ponder. My opponent mulls as well, and they're also good on 6. So Island and just get the Ponder out of the way. This is not outstanding. I do need the other land though, and another Consign could be okay. So yeah, I went ahead and kept. And then draw the Consign. Just go ahead and Hedge Maze now, bin the Atraxa, and pass. So now I'm holding up Consign for as long as I can. My opponent fetches Undercity Sewers and bins another land. Now on their turn, they have Burning Wish. Yep, that's fine. And they get a Thoughtseize. So if I can find a Veil, that would be great. I do find a Lurin. So it's possible I could win the game if I just brainstorm into Lotus Petal and Ancient Tomb. And actually, I brainstorm into no lands. So that's pretty awkward. And I'm going to have to hope that these Consigns and Hydroblasts hold this game together for a few turns. So I'm going to put Acererak on the very bottom, followed by probably the Aluren. So here I do get Thoughtseize, and they're going to get to take what they want. But they did take Omniscience, which is the worst card in my hand, so that's nice. They play land and pass. So I draw the second Aluren and just pass the turn. My opponent on their turn has the Squelcher, has LED, and I remember I think I misclicked here. So I do Hydroblast in response, but I think I clicked Yield All because there was no way I was going to let that Lion-Side Diamond resolve. So a bit of a tilting way to start here. But surely, a lot of times my content spoils what happens by the very nature of it. So, it ends up okay. But I do get, they get the gambles. So I'm going to lose all these cards in hand. So Echo of Eons sees an acceptable set of cards, and they pass. So I draw another Force. So I probably want to ponder here and simply try to hit Aluren. Ponder sees Show and Tell, more lands. This is probably just a shuffle. Lotus Petal. So I will Brainstorm here too. And Brainstorm hits. So I can play City of Traders and a Lotus Petal, Aluren Acererak, so I can just put back any other two cards. I don't think my opponent would have any interaction, but it's free to keep the blue cards in hand, so I can force if necessary. But this just looks like a nice clean win. Awesome. My opponent scoops. No changes to the sideboarding for game 3. Stock up if it was too slow on the play is definitely too slow on the draw. I will say a note, if you were running Surgical Extraction over Fairy Macabre, I might bring in Surgical versus a deck like Storm, but Fairy Macabre I don't like as much. Also, it's possible you could get Disruptor Flute as well. That could brick, an Echo of Eons line or something like that. Or when someone's beseeching, you can name like Tendrils of Agony or something that you expect that they're going to get off beseech. But I think it's just kind of difficult to name cards with Disruptor Flute. And I'll just be honest, I don't feel like I'm good at naming cards like that. I've never really felt like a great caster of Cabal Therapy. Meddling Mage has felt a little awkward to me. So Disruptor Flute is a card I've always been a little reluctant to play, but I think it's worth it in this deck. And the ability to name things that are already in play or already have been cast makes Flute better than Therapy and better than Mage, for me personally. This is a mulligan for sure. Just no action, way too slow. My opponent's good on 7, I mull. Now this hand, I believe I kept. Obviously the mana is terrible, but double Force of Will can just put back one Atraxa potentially. Maybe it'd be correct to put back the Boseiju, but I don't think you can afford to put back any mana when the mana situation is as rough as it is. So I put back Atraxa. The reason why I might say put back Boseiju is so that you can still like force pitch Atraxa and have an Atraxa in hand. So my opponent gambles. And what a gamble this was. They just try to echo me turn 1 with no protection. So obviously I'm going to force that, pitch Atraxa, and we play on. I draw Ponder, so I can force pitch Ponder. My opponent has no play, passes. I draw Hydroblast, so I'm not going to play the City out earlier than I have to. And that's something you have to learn with City is like a lot of times you just have to hold it in hand if you don't have an immediate use for it. Petal is great. So I do play out the Petal, but I think it's worthwhile to hold the Petal as long as possible because this is right now the only blue source I have. So I'm not desperate to ponder, and it's worthwhile to just hold it. I might need to cast Hydroblast off of it. Here I get the blue source, that's excellent. So I play it out, cast Ponder. Ponder sees a Veil Summer, and I'm sorry, I already clicked through the card on the bottom. And my opponent just scoops it up to that. So they were probably drawing pretty poorly. And they see that my mana situation is now under control. And that's all it took. GG's. draw for match 2. This is a fine hand in the blind. The mana is good. Stock Up, while not a combo card, is a very high value card and a card that warrants interaction from the opponent. So this is a pretty fine hand. My opponent plays an island and passes. So I'll probably do the same. Island go. Another island from the opponent and a ponder. I think that's a missed sequence. Maybe they want to just play around days. They don't shuffle, but I think it's probably worth it to ponder and then make the land drop second. I draw another mana source, which I don't love, but I'm going to go ahead and brainstorm here. More lands. Veil is great, but I can put back probably just the 2 basic lands and pass. Play out the petal. So if they Thoughtseize me, I have Veil around a daze. Now they play Karakas. So now I'm worried about it being the Stifle Pup deck. But I do go ahead and fetch, and they do Stifle. So I'll be redrawing another land. They're certainly not going to stifle me off of mana. But it would have been nice to shuffle away those cards, for sure. My opponent ponders. They shuffle this time, and they have Wasteland. I fetch, and they stifle again, so that's fine. I'll just redraw. So I play the Forest. With my opponent going pretty slowly, and with them having Wasteland, I think it's worth it to wait a turn before casting Stock Up backed by Veil and still respecting days. I think the best way to combat these tempo decks is to do what you can to make days a completely dead card, if they'll allow it. Another Veil is okay. I certainly think I'm going to get to Stock Up. So I play City, actually, so that they Wasteland City. Cast Stock Up. My opponent Wastelands now, which is not the correct timing for Wasteland at all. But I'll take it. And Stock Up sees 3 lands, Lotus Petal, and Force of Will. So definitely take the Force and take, I don't know, Misty, maybe City. I took the Misty. Definitely, yeah, Misty is correct because there's still 2 Hedge Mazes in the deck. My opponent has another Wasteland and passes. I draw another land, so flooding out ridiculously. And here my opponent has Felia. So the race is on. And they have Snapcaster Mage. So I did decide to Veil in response. I just get another Lotus Petal. So getting a bit ridiculous here. And my opponent targets Ponder. But if I recall, my opponent didn't cast the Ponder. So they exile the Snapcaster Mage and return the Snapcaster, which they target Ponder again. I think they were supposed to target Stifle because it's not like you can cast the Ponder here. But I'll take it. And I fetch Hedge Maze and Show and Tell. Well, that's something, so I'll definitely take that. So here, play the Misty so I can Surveil again. Play the other Petal out and pass. And the other Petal means I can Force of Will and back it with Veil. They do Wasteland me again on their own end step. Still not the correct timing for that, because you can certainly wait. They, again, bounce the Snapcaster. Return the Snapcaster. I Hedge Maze now. It sees both Seiju. Certainly don't need that, so that'll go to the bin. And they, again, target Ponder. And pass. So here's Stock Up. That's excellent. So I play Ancient Tomb. And definitely have to do the math here to see if this is tappable. But I'm going to get a hit for 6. So I'm dead in 2 turns no matter what. And I should be able to tap the Tomb a couple times. So Stock Up. They do have Force of Will. But actually they take it back and they don't cast it. So I know I'm going to have to beat a Force of Will. But there's a Traxa. And I can Ponder as well. I could also take the City to maximize mana. But here, backed by Veil, I'm definitely just going to jam, despite my opponent having Karakas. So my opponent forces, and I Veil. So they don't put anything in. I put a Traxa in. So there's Aluren and Acerak. There's not time to stock up anymore, so I can go Show and Tell, into either Omniscience or Aluren. It probably doesn't matter greatly, but since I can also get this Force of Will, I think I probably want to take Omniscience so that I can put in Omniscience and then have double Force of Will for the Acer rack, and I'm going to probably get the Atraxa Caracas back to hand. So I'm on 9 right now. Then I'm going to take another 6. So I actually can't tap the Tomb and Force of Will to back up my Show and Tell. So those are all good things to consider, but I can certainly play around that with how I keep. So I actually did just keep the Vista, but as you can see, I'm going to be going to cleanup. So I can just discard that. So as I go to cleanup, there's not going to be more than one more turn. So I can certainly ditch 2 lands and then probably just the Atraxa, knowing that this one's probably getting Caracas back to hand. So we go to my opponent's turn, they brainstorm, and then actually swords the Atraxa, which makes sense, but now I have a lot of life to play with, and they do the same Snapcaster trick. This time they get Brainstorm, which is something they can cast in the end step, but they still don't cast it. So I don't know what my opponent was doing with this Snapcaster, and they certainly left a lot of value on the table. So here, cast Show and Tell, they have nothing. Put in Omniscience. No reason to start with Acer, to start with Atraxa. They consign to memory this without replicating, so I'm wondering if their last card is also consigned to memory. But if it is, I do have double Force of Will. So I do force this, then my opponent has Stifle with no cards left in hand, so that's gonna be it. Just play Acer, and that's it. My opponent has me click through a little bit. I think they wanted to see how the combo works, but clearly you can see I have won from here. All right, so on the draw, this hand is pretty risky. I definitely do not like one-landers, but a one-lander that's a Surveil land on the draw is maybe okay. And the upside of this hand is unbelievable. I mean, Carpet plus Defense Grid. I also like how the land is not a fetch land against the Stifle deck. So it's very risky, but to me, this is a keep. My opponent goes Island and pass. So I draw the other land right away, which is great. So how to sequence this is interesting, but I think it's worthwhile to just hedge maze. And on the Surveil, I see another land. So mana was what I was looking for. That's a definite keep. Here they have Wasteland. They cast Ponder. No shuffle, Wasteland me. So here it's an interesting decision. Do I play Polluted Delta, fetch right away, and Carpet? Well, I've certainly said this in a previous video, but I really don't like casting Carpet of Flowers into Daze. The whole point of Carpet is to make Daze an embarrassing card, so letting them Daze Carpet, unless you're really desperate, is a pretty weak play. So I do play Polluted Delta here and fetch, but I need green, so it's kind of free here to just hedge maze. Hedge maze sees Ancient Tomb. Well, mana is what I'm looking for, so that's a keep. My opponent plays Caracas and passes. So I draw that Ancient Tomb, and now pretty interesting to see how this is going to work. There's a lot of options. Carpet of Flowers is a nice way to start. I'm certainly not going to very likely use the carpet this turn. Defense Grid would be pretty nice to resolve as well. I honestly don't remember what I did. You could also just Brainstorm, but Brainstorm, if it gets locked, would stink. So I go Ancient Tomb, Carpet of Flowers, played around Daze. My opponent goes Felia in response, and then Force of Negation, pitching Daze. Well, I at least got the Daze out of hand, so that's fine. And now, seeing as Daze was just exiled, I slam the Defense Grid. And that resolves. Now, of course, they can remove it via Felia by removing it and then consigning the trigger. And now my opponent has Wasteland. So if they Wasteland the Hedge Maze, that's more valuable to me right now than the Tomb because it's a colored source. But kind of greedily, they play Quantum Riddler instead. So Riddler, they then exile that, and so they're going to give me 1 turn with the airlock here. So I draw another Aluren. So if Brainstorm hits Acerak, I just win because Show and Tell in Aluren, and then my opponent can't do anything. So let's start with Brainstorm. There he is. So just put back not a land and Show and Tell. I put in Aluren, opponent puts in another land, but they still don't have 3 mana to interact. And I get there. GG's. Here I lose the die roll. And this hand is close. It has Force of Will, which could be really important, and it has a combo piece. The mana is under, like, I would say this mana is definitely in the bottom 50% of openers of what you could expect to receive. There's no cantrips, so to me, this is a mulligan. My opponent's good on 7. This is much better. Turn 1 Atraxa, potentially. So just put back the Ponder. My opponent goes Petrified Hamlet, names Wasteland. And they pass. I draw another land, so kind of regretting putting back that Ponder, but here I can afford to get Trop, Lotus Petal, and certainly when an opponent starts with Petrified Hamlet, my assumption is you probably can't interact with a turn 1 Show and Tell. So, they do have Force of Will though, so now kind of in a pickle here. Then they go Urza's Tower, so it's like a blue Tron. So Misty Rainforest with the plan to Hedge Maze. My opponent has Expedition Map. Surveil sees Acerak. I could potentially draw this, and then both Show and Tell and Aluren are good draws from there, but I think I did send it to the bin because I also don't have mana for Aluren right now. And I draw Omniscience, which is worse. And pass. My opponent has Urza's Power Plant, so they're certainly going to have a ton of mana. I get Boseiju. That's not bad. My opponent cracks the map for a Nexus, so I go ahead and Boseiju here on the tower. And they get nothing. I figured they would probably at least have an island, but I guess they don't. So they play Nexus and pass, so no One Ring or anything. I get Acerak. So if I can just get a Show and Tell, maybe I can win. Here, my opponent has Kozilek's Command. They top a card. Stock up. So they're fully loaded. Another Expedition Map. Here's Aluren, so there's definitely a chance, but it's starting to look kind of rough. My opponent cracks the map, gets Urza's Tower. So basically infinite mana for them. I get another Aluren. So just bricking on the mana. And then on end step here, my opponent has Kozilek's Command X equals 5. Don't know why you wouldn't go all the way with it, but they scry 2 to the top. It's looking bad. They get another stock up. Another land. They name Boseiju with Petrified Hamlet. Karn the Great Creator, and they get Mycos Inflatus that they can cast right now. So, yeah, just never drew what I needed to recover from the turn 1 failed send attempt. Sideboard for game 2. I took out 1 island, 1 Lotus Petal, and the 2 Veils. Despite my opponent being a counterspell deck, Veil Summer definitely isn't that great versus this deck. So I think it's worth cutting for Force of Negation, 2 Consigns, and the Disruptor Flute. And this is a matchup where I love having Disruptor Flute because they have so many activated abilities. And you can always just name Force of Will. So this is a nice hand. Turn 2, stock up. So I start with fetching for a trop, casting Ponder. There's Show and Tell, so I can actually just Show and Tell in Omniscience and then try to win from there. And if they counter Show and Tell, I can Show and Tell again the following turn. My opponent goes Petrified Hamlet, names Boseiju who endures, plays Expedition Maps, so definitely going to jam here, especially since I can do it 2 straight turns. And if they counter both, I can always recover with stock up. And I will say when I started playing this deck, I used to probably on a turn like this go stock up. Just jam. It pays so much. Like it usually will resolve. And then if nothing else, you deplete your opponent's resources. Maybe they have to pitch their stock up. And then eventually you just recover with stock up and reload. So it resolves. And I put in Omniscience. My opponent puts in Grim Monolith. So they could have something here. They could have Disruptor Flute. I cast stock up. That resolves. So there's Azorius and another stock up. So it's looking really nice. Stock up again. Oof. Another Omniscience and Aluren. So hopefully and likely this Azorius will get the job done here. So it resolves once and my opponent scoops. So on to game 3. No changes to the sideboard for game 3. This hand is really nice. Boseiju can interact with them in a meaningful way, most likely. Force pitch Omniscience likely, and then stock up to reload. My opponent has turn 1 Expedition Map. I draw Ponder, which is also really nice. This is a great opportunity to cast that card. So Trop, Ponder, also great cards. I like this hand quite a lot, so I can probably bottom the Brainstorm and plan on not seeing that again. Draw Ponder this turn, Force of Negation, pitch Ponder, and then have double stock up. But I actually did draw the stock up. I think I disagree with that. I think if I could do it again, I would draw the Ponder. But my opponent does go double Urza's lands, so they actually can assemble the natural Tron. If they choose Planar Nexus off Expedition Map, it'll be a bit better for them, but I can definitely blow it out if they just go for the tower. So Misty Rainforest go. My opponent cracks the map, and they do choose the line with more upside of Urza's tower. So I'm going to fetch Trop and Boseiju, either one of these, it really doesn't matter. I like the art of this one better, so I'll keep it around, I guess. And now they go tower, and they're stuck on mana. So I draw another stock up, and just cast it. So Show and Tell is great. Probably Show and Tell and Azorius here. And then just cast this Ponder. Ponder sees a Force and a Show and Tell, so it's looking pretty good here. My opponent has Petrified Hamlet, names Boseiju, which is totally fine. I only play the 1, and passes. All right, well, time to jam for consecutive turns, but I'll probably back it up this turn with Force of Will. Cast Show and Tell. Force of Negation, pitch, sink into Stupor. And I actually did let that go. Actually, yeah, I remember my thought process here. So typically, I do like to back up the first one with Force of Will, because if you decide to wait, then your opponent has more time to reload or sculpt so that they're more prepared for another one. But if you counter the first one, then they have only whatever they have in hand right now to interact. They might have to force again, but pitch that flow state or cantrip or win condition of some kind. But next turn I'm drawing Brainstorm, which is much less valuable to me than a stock up, which I would have pitched this turn. So I actually like holding off in this situation. My opponent has Soporific Springs, which is a blue card that they are letting go of. And that could have been a card to pitch to a Force. So here I go Show and Tell. They do have Force of Will. Pitch Force of Will. And notice they did lose a blue card. I bet they have no more blue cards in hand, but it's not like they can hard cast a force, so it could have been good for them to hold this card. So now I can force pitch the Brainstorm, and that resolves. I put in Omniscience, my opponent puts in nothing. So now I can actually cast the Force of Negation. I have both those stock ups. So start with the stock up, get Acerak and Brainstorm, stock up again, another Acerak and a Force of Will, cast Brainstorm, there's Atraxa, so I can put back probably one of these Aceraks and Petal, cast Atraxa. My opponent here has Eldrazi Confluence. I mean, I could force it, but I don't need to. And my opponent here can definitely see that that is the match. GG's. All right, I'm on the draw for match number 4. This hand is a pretty good hand. Could be a turn 3, even a turn 2 if I were to draw a Lotus Petal. I have Force of Will, pitch Atraxa. The mana is a little rough. My opponent goes Volcanic, Bobble, Opal, Paths. So it's probably the Loki Welder deck. I draw an island, which awkwardly doesn't help with casting Aluren, so I play Misty and pass. My opponent plays Sewer Valence Cam on end step, bobbles themselves actually. So they reload their hand a bit, play another Volk, Loki God of Mischief. So here I fetch in response because if I don't see something I like, I might want to counter this, because this will really help them to get off the ground with their own strategy. Hedgemate sees a Lotus Petal, so I can win next turn. So actually it makes sense to save the Force of Will for my own thing. And so yeah, you can have a Loki. My opponent passes, cast Lotus Petal, Ancient Tomb, cast Aluren, cast Acerak, and that's it. Sideboarding versus Loki Welder. I do take out the Veil Summers. Yes, they do have things like Spell Pierce, but not a lot of counter magic. Trim one basic island, one stock up, because again, this is a pretty fast combo deck. And trim the 2 Omnisciences. I also don't think Consign to Memory hits enough from this deck. So what I bring in is the 2 Hydroblasts to kill Goblin Welder or counter a Goblin Engineer. The 3 Fairy Macabre to combat the Graveyard Strategy. And then Disruptor Flute is also pretty good here because that can stop Goblin Welder. This hand sadly has no colored mana, so despite having Force and Fairy Macabre, it's a must mulligan. My opponent mulligans as well. This is much better. There's still Graveyard Hate, Force of Will, and stock up to as early as turn 2. So I put back the Force of Will already on a mull, and with Fairy Macabre, I can interact with them. My opponent has Volcanic Island and Goblin Welder, so hopefully this Fairy Macabre will hold the game together for me. I draw Hedge Maze, which is nice. I can go ahead and get that out of the way, but I do actually play Island and Ponder. Makes sense. You can get like another Fairy Macabre potentially. I think this was a worthwhile play. Force of Will is nice. Brainstorm and Aluren, so there's a path to victory. Just draw the Force of Will in case of emergency. My opponent has a land, Chromatic Star, and Sewer Valence Cam. So if they have another mana source, they can win right now. If I didn't have Macabre. And you can't really force anything when there's a Goblin Welder in play. You can't force a will artifacts, I should say. So they do weld out the star, which allows them to draw a card. And they get to untap the welder. They have Lotus Petal here, so they can make the trade again. And so here you have to decide where to interact. And Chromatic Star and Sewerveillance Cam are definitely the two cards that are allowing them to combo. So the most high value for me, or the best high roll situation, might be right now to interact, but then they would still have the cam and they could potentially keep going. So I'm actually going to let them have this. And then when they attempted, sorry, I kind of skipped ahead there in the replay, but in response to them exiling or getting Sewerveillance Cam back for the star, I exiled the cam. And star allows them to draw their whole deck here, so they were going to win for sure. Then they have Emery, and that's what I have to force. So force pitch stock up on the Emery. They do get to bobble a hold on, so they're going to draw a bunch of bobble cards, 3 bobble draws, but potentially they might be out of gas. I draw Brainstorm, that's great. Of course, I knew about the Brainstorm already. So I cast it, and I can win next turn. So put back probably just, it might be okay to bin the Atraxa. I don't necessarily have to bin anything, but if I'm going to win next turn, yeah, actually just bin the Hedge Maze and the Atraxa, or put those back on top so I'm not binning anything. Then Urza Saga from the opponent, Legion Extruder, hit me for 2. All right, well, time to jam. Show and tell, put in Aluren. My opponent puts in Goblin Engineer, so they actually could win the game right here. But I can Ace or Rack in response. My opponent flips Legion Extruder for Chromatic Star for a redraw. Draws a card. If they got green mana, then they could have possibly gotten the Haywire Might and exiled the Aluren, but they didn't do that. So this ended up being good enough, and I got there. GG's. Well, I'm playing for another trophy here. I'm on the play. I like it already. Hand's fine. Probably start with the Hedge Maze. Hedge Maze, Surveil sees another land. Lands is what I was looking for, so that's a keep. My opponent goes Scalding Tarn and passes. So here I start with Brainstorm. No land drop, so if they dazed this, it would be fine. I would love for them to interact with the Brainstorm. And then not fantastic cards, can probably just put back a Brainstorm and a Tomb. But I actually put back, was it Brainstorm and a Stock Up? I guess I definitely want to make sure I don't get wastelanded out of the game. And then I do pass here. Then my opponent goes Tundra, Tamiyo, so they probably do play Stifle. So here I fetch, my opponent stifles, play on. So I redraw the Ponder. I cast Ponder. Ponder sees Show and Tell, Force of Will, Brainstorm. That's all great. Draw the Force, play out Ancient Tomb, and pass. My opponent attacks with Tamiyo, makes a clue. Cast Brainstorm. Flips Tamiyo. Wasteland. Chooses to Wasteland the Tomb, which was a huge break for me. But for the record, I think probably correct for my opponent. Sometimes you feel like you can lock someone out of the game by hitting their colored source, but it's more likely that you're going to get high value out of wastelanding the Tomb. So I agree with what my opponent did there, but I think it might lose them this game. So with my opponent untapping and getting to start minusing this Tamiyo, it's just time to go for it. Show and Tell. That resolves. I put in Aluren. My opponent puts in Felia. Ace or Rack. My opponent consigns this, so this is an all-in moment. Force of Will, pitch Ponder. And my opponent scoops. So this was quite a close one, but the issue here is Tamiyo, when it can start to minus and get cards out of the graveyard, it just feels like you have no chance at that point, especially if you don't have a card like Defense Grid. So when your opponent has reached this stage of the game, just put all your chips on the table and try to win. So sideboarding here, I take out all the Lotus Petals, 1 Force of Will, and the 2 Omnisciences. And I bring in actually 1 Consign to Memory versus this deck because they just have so many triggers off of Felia that you might get some value off of that. And I think that Consign to Memory number 1 is probably better than Force of Will number 4. So I bring in 2 Defense Grids, the 3 Petals, the 3 Carpet of Flowers, and then the 1 Consign to Memory. And I have not been bringing in Disruptor Flute versus the blue decks. I could see it being correct versus like if they have Tamiyo and Wasteland. And you can always just name Force of Will in a pinch. So I have not been trying that, but it's worth trying for sure. All right, so this hand is nice. Have to hope that I don't get stifled out of the game or that I draw some more lands, but yeah, it's fine. My opponent goes land go, so that's awkward. They're holding up Stifle. And I draw Brainstorm, so Flooded Strand go. My opponent does not crack a fetch. They play a Wasteland. So I play Misty and pass. And my opponent plays another land and passes. They probably drew that land. And in hindsight, to play around Stifle, I think it was probably correct to crack both of these on my opponent's upkeep before they put up what would potentially be a second Stifle. So I draw Show and Tell, 8 cards in hand. So, I mean, it's kind of just time to have some action here. But as you can see, my opponent stifles the fetch. I fetch again. And my opponent stifles the other fetch. And yikes. So go to cleanup. Can probably just discard this consign. And I'm going to speed this game up here because, as you'll see, this game did not go so well for me from this point on. I draw, again, no land. My opponent gets Felia. I go to cleanup. My opponent ponders. They have Quantum Riddler. They bounce their own Quantum Riddler, or they blink it, I should say. Again, no land, so this is just clearly not going to work out for me. So, after a very uneventful game 2, on to game 3. No sideboard changes here for game 3. Just gonna have to hope that my sideboard plan here nets me a trophy. All right, double carpet. So this is a definite keep. And this is a situation where I actually do think it makes sense to just turn 1 carpet. My opponent does not have days. And I want to play around Stifle with my fetch. Now, the awkward thing is by choosing to do this, if my opponent holds up Stifle over the next turn, they could stifle this fetch. And so if they like forced a carpet stifled, I might struggle on mana still. But as soon as blue mana shows up, I do have the second carpet. However, this one resolves, so play on. My opponent plays Flooded Strand and passes, so this is a good opportunity to just play out another carpet, but I did actually fetch and play this carpet. And I guess I was hoping if they stifled this, I at least get to have mana with the carpet. But now stifling fetch lands with carpets in play doesn't make a lot of sense. So now it's only a matter of time until my opponent ramps me significantly, but they are going to try to prolong that, which I respect out of them. I think my opponent played this match very well. And I draw another stock up. So here I'm still getting bricked on the carpets, but I can just cast stock up. So here's stock up, that resolves. And here I think it makes sense to just go Azorius and Aluren. I could always get the Atraxa because hard casting Atraxa is definitely very feasible with double carpet. Another reason why I love carpet so much in multiples in this deck. But Azorius Aluren just gives me a clear path to a win. So I pass the turn back. My opponent does fetch on end step. Looks like Felia is coming in. But now the carpets are switched on. So now it's looking pretty nice. But my opponent has the Riddler. So I'm not going to have a ton of time here. Or my opponent can just keep drawing 2 a turn. So they wasteland here. Not the best in the face of carpet, but they also get to draw more cards with Riddler. All right, so here, my opponent is tapped out. I certainly think it's worth it to, at the very least, ponder to see if I can find a Veil or a defense grid. So I decline the carpets, play City, and actually just go for broke with the stock up. That resolves. I can go Atraxa and Show and Tell here so that I have double combo. And now go to second main, make blue mana. I don't want to jam Show and Tell into Daze, because like I said, Carpet of Flowers should make Daze a dead card. Never jam into Daze if you don't have to when you have carpets in play. So I play Ponder. I do see Force of Will and Veil. This was an excellent set of cards that really ties my strategy together. So I draw Force, and with the mana, I might as well just start working my way through those cards with the Brainstorm. And so I can probably want to keep Force in hand, backed by Veil immediately. Could probably just put back the 2 Allurans. But I did keep 1 Alluran in play and put the stock up back. Doesn't really matter that much. All right, so my opponent has an interesting decision about what to do with their attacks. But they play Meddling Mage. Now, I could make my opponent name correctly here. But I think the clear correct name is Acererak, and so I don't want to just let them do that. So it really stinks here to have to Force of Will my opponent's card, but I'm going to force pitch Atraxa. And the reason for that is I don't want to give them the opportunity to stifle the Atraxa trigger or just blink it and then kill me anyway. And they can just do that. Like they can just blink the Atraxa when they go to combat, attack with both of these this turn, blink Atraxa, attack again next turn. So doing all of this pre-combat for my opponent was, I think, very good for them. So I force pitch Atraxa. They daze. I pay for the daze. And that's it. But a heads up play for my opponent because now they don't have an island. So now my carpets don't do anything. So they go to combat, they exile a carpet, and just let me have the carpet back. So I draw stock up, but I'm dead next turn. So there's really only one course of action here. I have Show and Tell backed by Veil. If my opponent stifles, I lose. If my opponent has swords, I probably get 1 more turn. So Show and Tell. My opponent has Force of Negation, pitch Tamiyo. I respond with Veil. My opponent fetches in response. This could be Daze. But instead it's Brainstorm. So that's a little scary. Veil resolves. I could still lose, though, if they have a land and a stifle. I put in Alluran. My opponent puts in Tamiyo. They could still have, like, Meddling Mage, but I think if they had it, they should have put it in off of Show and Tell. So I'm guessing the coast is clear. Cast Acererak, and GG's, I got there. Man, that was a sweaty last game, but thankfully I pulled through and got the trophy. This has been a wild run, and I'm very thankful to be on it. And this deck has felt so sweet. I really don't know if Eternal Weekend was tomorrow, I really don't know if I would want to play this deck or Dimir Tempo. Let's see what Monday has in store. As I'm recording this, it's Sunday, August 9th, but you might be seeing this after the ban announcement. And if Car gets banned, that might greatly affect the format. There could be other bans. It could be that The Hobbit has some new important cards that affect Legacy. So the format's a bit up in the air right now, but right now, as a snapshot of the format on August 9th, I think this deck feels really amazing. It's been a pleasure to play it recently, and I look forward to continuing. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.